So we've talked about orca attacking great white sharks and even hunting sperm whales. Now, on paper, sperm whales are certainly larger than orca, but it seems sperm whales usually play defense. Even the large bulls generally seem to swim away from the sounds of an orca, despite being much larger. Makes sense, I suppose, when you consider sperm whales don't eat orca, as far as we're aware, but some pods of orca will hunt and eat them, though usually they go for the smaller, younger whales. Orca, in fact, hunt a variety of different cetaceans, including the largest animals on the planet. It would almost seem that in the natural world, no animal will mess with a pod of orca. They are truly the apex, right at the top of the food chain. However, there does seem to be one animal they fear, an animal whose call can make orcas turn around and flee an area. Pilot whales. While orcas may have the title of sea wolves, pilot whales are sometimes called cheetahs of the deep due to their high-speed dives where they go after prey like giant squid. There are actually two known species of pilot whales, long-finned pilot whales and short-finned pilot whales. The short and long fin is not referring to the dorsal fin, but rather the pectoral fins, though apparently it's difficult to distinguish between the two. Maybe it's hard to get a good look at the fins when they're in the water. But they also inhabit different areas. There's some overlap, but the long fins prefer the colder waters further north and further south, while the short-finned pilot whales prefer slightly warmer waters throughout the world's oceans. That's all well and good, but which ones scare away the orcas? Well, it seems like it's the long-finned pilot whales. They are the bigger of the two species. There's not a huge size difference between them, but long-finned seem to have a max length of approximately 7.6 meters, about 25 feet, and a max weight of about 4,500 kilos, so a little under 10,000 pounds. And short-finned pilot whales seem to have a max length of about 7.2 meters, or 23.6 feet, and a max weight of approximately 3,600 kilos, or almost 8,000 pounds. It's not a massive difference, especially in terms of length. 25 feet long and 10,000 pounds is pretty heavy, and that is a big animal. But it's not orca big. Big male orcas can grow to lengths over 30 feet, close to 10 meters, and get closer to 10,000 kilos, or 22,000 pounds. Orcas are the largest members of the oceanic dolphin family, though the second and third largest are the two different species of pilot whales. So, if orca are generally larger than pilot whales, how or why would they be afraid of them? Well, let's take a closer look at what actually happened. Perhaps the most recent observations, at least recorded ones, are from an article that was published in 2022 titled "Occurrence of Long-Finned Pilot Whales and Killer Whales in Icelandic Coastal Waters and Their Interspecific Interactions." So obviously, as the title suggests, this paper looked at interactions between the two off the coast of Iceland. Though published in 2022, the paper spoke about observations from 2007 to 2020 and multiple different sites around Iceland. Generally, it seemed that orca feed at shallower depths than pilot whales, but there was overlap. And what happened when there was overlap? Well, 68% of the time, the orca avoided the pilot whales by leaving the area at a regular speed, and 28% of the time, they left the area at high speed. While there may be a variety of reasons for the high-speed retreat, if we look at the graph, it does show that this occurred when pilot whales greatly outnumbered the orca. Of course, the orca fearing the pilot whales is an interpretation, and not necessarily a fact. But on the surface, that kind of seems like what happened. But why? Is it just a numbers game? As far as I can tell, pilot whales aren't known to hunt orca, and seem to mostly feed on cephalopods, and sometimes different fish. Orca, on the other hand, might eat pilot whales. Apparently, it hasn't been observed, but according to the Encyclopedia of Marine Mammals and the International Whaling Commission, it could be likely that orca occasionally target them. I mean, orca do hunt a variety of marine mammals, including cetaceans, so I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility. It seems that in some instances, the orca off the coast of Iceland were feeding when the pilot whales showed up. Perhaps it was simply a case that competing for food in the same area wasn't worth the energy. Perhaps the pilot whales just arrived because it was a good area to find food. And maybe, except in some other cases, when pilot whales hear orca calls, they charge towards them. In a paper from 2012 titled "Pilot Whales Attracted to Killer Whale Sounds," a team decided to play some orca sounds in the Norwegian Sea to see how other cetaceans would react. Orca are highly vocal, and they wanted to know how cetaceans would respond, considering orca, quote, can be both food competitors and potential predators of many other cetaceans. To be clear, the orca sounds were recordings taken of orcas that were feeding on fish, but similar sounds had caused other cetaceans like grey whales, beaked whales, and belugas to flee an area. Even bull sperm whale have been known to avoid and change course when orca sounds are played. Pilot whales, though, specifically the long-finned pilot whales in Norwegian waters, did the opposite. Tagged pilot whales charged towards the sound, and not only that, but other individual pilot whales joined the mob and headed towards the sound. Now, why exactly they went towards them, the team had 3 different theories. 1. Since the sounds were herring-feeding killer whales, they may have approached hoping to feed on some herring themselves. Even though they mostly eat cephalopods, they also eat some fish on occasion too. Number 2, it could be an anti-predatory strategy. And 3, it could be, quote, an aggressive behavior towards heterospecifics, which is a different species or group. I would also like to mention that this paper and the previous paper around Iceland both spoke about a similar behavior at the Strait of Gibraltar. It was long-finned pilot whales again. I would have thought they would have been further north, but like I said, there is some overlap in the range. Anyway, long-finned pilot whales around the strait had been observed approaching and chasing killer whales that were feeding on fish. I almost feel like the reason these cetaceans have aggressive defensive behavior, or whatever it is because they are more closely related to orca than some other cetaceans. They are both highly social, highly intelligent, large oceanic dolphins. Pilot whales are very social, actually, not only with their own species, but they have also been observed interacting with other dolphins, such as bottlenose dolphins off the coast of New Zealand and Rizzo dolphins off the coast of California. To be fair, sometimes the pilot whales did display aggressive behavior towards the squid-eating Rizzo dolphins, as observed in a paper from 1995. However, sometimes they seem to share an area without issue. Would that ever happen with orca? Well, perhaps it already has. It is very hard to have a definitive statement about wildlife, especially with behavior. Going back to the Iceland study, most of the time the orca fled, but sometimes they didn't. Sometimes, on rare occasions, they didn't really bother each other at all. They seemed almost ambivalent to the other's presence. But it gets even stranger. There was a paper published in 2023, which is also from Iceland, where researchers observed a female orca with a baby pilot whale. They weren't sure if the calf was adopted after being orphaned, or abandoned, or if the calf was abducted, but either way, the female orca, quote, showed protective behavior towards the pilot whale calf. This seems to be the first time this has been documented, but the researchers said that, quote, if it was an abduction or kidnap, this may go some way in explaining why long-finned pilot whales are often seen chasing pods of orcas away. So perhaps this is a major or minor reason why the pilot whales like to chase them away. There are many mysteries regarding orcas and pilot whales yet to be explained, and though the focus is on pilot whales chasing away the orcas, I would be very surprised if the opposite doesn't also occur, at least on some occasions. While the exact reason why the pilot whales choose to confront the orca is up for debate, it's interesting to see the different strategies animals take. The largest predatory fish must retreat. The largest predator on the planet also needs to retreat, or form a large defensive ring, I guess. But these oceanic dolphins boldly charge towards the enemy. Thank you to my patrons and members, and thank you very much for watching.